Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Digital Today's podcast. I am Dave.
I'm Ron.
And Ron, we got episode 242 today.
That sounds like some back alley club, doesn't it? You're
It
going
kind
on
of does. It's like, yeah, like
going on to 242 tonight.
Studio 242, yeah.
We're gonna go sneak in some drive time football down at 242 tonight.
I think it's more like we're gonna rock down to Club 242, and we'll start a fire. Yeah, something like that. I think that would work. Anyway,
wings and 50-cent beers, right?
That's right. 50-cent wings. I take the 50-cent wings right now rather than 50
That's true. I'll take a 50-cent wing and a 50-cent beer.
That would be great. Anyway, ways to get a hold of us. digitaltodice.com is the website. 978-751-DICE is the text line. digitaltodice@yahoo.com is the email. And over on Facebook, facebook.com/groups/digitaltodice. Now, in this episode, Ron, episode 242, we are live on YouTube right now, kind of simulcasting this. That'll go along with our audio show. And we got a very special guest in this one here. A brand new football game just dropped, and I've been playing it, and you've been playing a little bit too. And the name of that football game is Drive Time Football, and we have the creator, John, with us here on the show. John, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. Appreciate it. I'm honored.
No problem. No problem.
All righty.
Don't like your hat, but no problem.
Oh yeah, he's got that. It is the World Series tonight. He has the Yankees.
The Yankees are in it, so it's at least it's appropriate.
Yeah. So we have a couple of people in the chat room already. We have Kent Classic Sports coming by, and some guy named Steve Tower. He must be new or something like that. I don't know.
Mr. Tower is actually going to be doing a wrestling thing later this evening.
Was it tonight or was it last night? He was doing something with Clay.
Was it last night?
I think it was last night. Yeah, I missed it because I was working, but wow, I need to watch the replay of that. Yeah. But anyway, so John, we're going to talk about your game Drive Time Football here. But before we do that, we do have one question we ask all of our guests. Okay. And that question is, if you could go back in time and attend any sporting event, what would that sporting event be?
Ooh, I would put it either, speaking of the Dodgers and the Yankees, probably the 78 World Series. I believe that was the one where Reggie Jackson had his Mr. November moniker.
That's 77.
77? Okay. That was the year I had my first TV set in my bedroom, and I actually had a cable box with a little switch that you had to plug in, and I bought it with my own money I made from my paper route. So that was probably one of the first most memorable events that I would
that's cool.
Being too live.
Nice. Yeah, I remember watching as a kid and just being like, oh, but anyway. All right, that's a good one. So, yeah, Yankees-Dodgers 77, Yankees-Dodgers 2024. They're back at it. What do you think is going to happen in the series?
Oh, the Yankees are going to take it, of course.
Really? Okay. You heard it here first. All right, place your bets on FanDuel. All righty. So anyway, we're here to talk about your game, Drive Time Football. Now, is this the first game that you've ever developed?
No, but it's probably the first game that I've put out that has had the reception that it's had. I've got a baseball game on mothballs that I started shortly after COVID. It seemed like the card and dice game industry exploded right after COVID hit.
Oh, yeah.
And I kind of jumped on that bandwagon myself after not playing for several decades, probably. And I have, like I said, I have that one in the mothballs. Football and baseball are my main sports. Growing up, as far as activity wise, bowling was my game. And I've dabbled in that, at least in the Excel realm. But as far as a full-fledged game that I plan on seeing through, yeah, this is probably the first and probably the best one I've had made so far.
Was the baseball one similar in style?
No, not at all. It's a lot more intricate. It's started as a long play, long form game that I'm trying to make it into a medium form game. So that's my reason for not completing it as of yet.
Okay. What kind of gaming did you do? What are some of your origins of your gaming beginnings?
Oh wow. Well, it started with the old Cataco, the spinner game.
Spinners.
And I did play some Strat, a lot of status around the SI baseball, the one with the yellow cards for the pitchers and the white cards for the hitters. Then started getting into computer with Earl Weaver. I did a lot of Earl Weaver stuff back in the day. And then I still play Diamond Mind. I do a website for a series of 5 old-time fantasy leagues that
nice.
our organization's running. So
draft leagues or best teams or
they're draft leagues. Yeah, it's draft leagues going from the 30s to the 1990s.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's get to drive time football now. What was the inspiration to make this game? When did you start making this game? How long has this whole process taken?
To be perfectly honest, I answered this in my Facebook group maybe last week. This to be honest, this came to me so quicker than I had anticipated. The inception of this game is probably less than a month old.
Oh, really?
Wow. Yeah, but I wanted to make something that was not so similar, but I haven't played a lot of Payoff Pitch, but I just love the way their cards are made.
Yes.
I love a game where you can look at a card and you can automatically see how a player is going to be, what his qualities are, or a team just by looking at the card. And the way I made these cards, the team cards, you can just by a first glance see exactly how those teams are going to respond in the long run based on the qualities that are on them. So that was my impetus, is to make something that was a very quick play. I think Dave, you got yours down to like 7.5 minutes for
I saw the game and I downloaded the instructions in a couple of teams and I went live, and I read the instructions as I was setting up to go live, and I hadn't even played a game yet. And usually I'll play a game or two because I want to I don't want to get on here and stumble my way through. This game was, when I read the instructions and I had seen you and a couple other people play, I was like, this is just such an easy game. I didn't even bother with any prep. I just went live, and I took about a half hour, 45 minutes to an hour to talk about it and show it off and slow play. And when I get done, I says, I'm wondering how fast I can play this if I didn't have the camera on and I didn't have to worry about anything. And I just played it as fast as I could play it. And it was 7 minutes and 17 seconds.
Wow.
That's how long it took me to play a game. And again, that'll depend on how many extra drives you get and how many times you need to re-roll for red zone. But I was just like, boom, it's this, boom, what's this? Okay, boom, this, boom, boom, done. So I would say, I went pretty quick on that, but I would say plan on 9 or 10 minutes for this game here. And it is a drive-by-drive game. And so you come up with it's 2 drives per quarter per team. So everyone's getting 8 drives.
Right.
Then you roll to see if there's any one extra drive per quarter.
Correct.
And then in the fourth quarter, there's a second roll. So if you get the extra roll in the second or the fourth quarter, you roll to see if time expires on the team. So what was the thought process behind all that?
Okay, so the whole premise of the game is trying to find a way to figure out the percentages of how drives end, because there's a finite number of ways of how drives end. So this is what makes this so simplistic. Usually drives either end in a red zone, opportunity to score, a fumble, an interception is a turnover, a punt, or a turnover ending on downs, or time running out. Or safety. I mean, that's basically all you have. So I was able to capture that in the percentages of each team on offense and defense, both having those qualities or allowing those different qualities in a simple 2x12 format. And as far as the drives, you're right. If you go, I did have to do a little bit of statistical digging here, but just about everybody has 8 drives, a minimum per game, and some have 12, some fewer, more than 12, but I'll account that for overtime games to go for that. So, but typically 99% is between 8 and 12 drives. So you just take a basic. I'm sorry?
City looked it up today. Kansas City last year had 8.94 drives per game.
Yep.
Yeah, we talked about that today, John, because I was walking the dog and I called Ron and we were talking about, doing some prep for the interview. And I was like, all these drive-by-drive games, it's like, it seems like, when you go 3 and out, it's a 30-second drive. And it's like, is it really only 8 to 10 drives a game? And while I'm walking and Ron's doing the research, and he nailed it down. And was it 8.4 or something?
It was 8.94, and Kansas City punted less than 40 times last year in a 17-game season. Think about that for a second. They punted less than 40 times. Anyway, sorry, Doug. But
no, that's right. Here, I'm going to bring up my 2023 season that I have here, and I'm going to look up Kansas City since you said they punted so little.
I was stunned.
And they have 8
on the screen right now, just so everybody can see. This is the new 2007 season you just created, and we have New England and New Orleans here on the screen. And so, how the game plays, in case you're wondering, folks, is that you roll 3 dice. So it's 2 to 12, and then there's a third die, which is some kind of a decider die, a 50-50 decider die. That'll determine. So New England has the ball. And you roll the decider die, and if it's either going to be New England's offense or New Orleans defense, that's where you're going to look. So then you look at the 2 to 12 roll. It shows you what happened, and sometimes you're done, and other times you go to the red zone where you roll a second time to see what the result's going to be in the red zone. So that's kind of how the game plays. It's a 50-50 system for the most part. Each team will get 2 drives in the first quarter. Then you roll, and you see New England's extra drive is 2 to 4. So you roll the 2 to 12 again, and to see if they get the extra drive, you do the same for New Orleans. Now, New Orleans is a 2 to 7, so they have a better chance of getting the extra drive. And then that underneath extra point, the EOH and EOG, that's the end of half and end of game roll. So let's just say we rolled a 3 and New England got the extra drive. Well, in the second quarter and the fourth quarter, we need to roll again, and a 2 to 6 would tell us that time would run out on them and they would not get the extra drive, is kind of how that all works. Below that, you have the obviously, above that is the extra point. So you do roll for extra points. So 2 to 12. So it's automatically good, but you did configure a way that if you roll 2 dice, if it comes up as, was it 11, and then you roll the safety die, which is a third? It's
12.
No good?
If you roll 12 and the safety die comes up as a safety, or if you roll another 1d6, if it comes up, 1 or 2, you pick 2 numbers. So that represents a 1% chance of the extra point being missed on a 2 to 12.
So is that why the for those in Radio Land, why the 12 on the Patriots is in yellow as opposed to why New Orleans is not?
No, the yellow represents safeties. Yes. So if you have an offense or defensive possession ending in a 12, if you roll the safe, that yellow means you roll the safety dice, because the 12s and the 2s are basically a 3% chance.
Right. 1 in 36.
Over the course of a season, nobody had a safety percentage over 1%. So what I did is on those 12s, if you have a yellow box, you roll the safety die, and if it comes up 1 or 2 as a positive, that's that 1%, and then that possession would be scored as a safety, either on offense or defense. Actually, it's always the defense that's going to get the points for the safety.
Now, the safety die is a 1 out of 3 chance. So you would take any, the 6-sided die, and 1 or 2 would be the safety, and then 3, 4, 5, 6 would not. Whatever combination of a third. Correct. So the safety die would be a 1 out of 3 chance. Okay, so that's how I understand it. So New England rolls a 12 on offense. It says downs, so they would lose it on downs, except if we rolled a safety roll, then the safety would go to New Orleans, right?
Right.
And now on New England's defense, so if New Orleans had the ball and you rolled a 12 in New England's defense, it's either a punt or a safety. So you'd roll the safety die. If it comes up positive, then New England gets to 2 points. Is kind of how I think that works. Okay. Continuing on, again, for those of you in Radio Land, we're just kind of taking a look at the cards right now. And if you download them, you can follow along. Underneath the end of half and end of game roll, you have the interception for a touchdown roll, and that's 0 for both teams. So that means if there's any interception, that nobody can return it for a touchdown. I believe that is.
Right.
And then underneath that, it says fumble for TD. So if there's a fumble, you roll the dice. Now, New Orleans has a 0, so they cannot return it, but New England has a 5 and a 6. So that tells me if New Orleans has the ball and they fumble it, New England gets the ball, and if they roll a 5 or a 6, and they bring it back for a touchdown.
Correct, and that does not count as a possession.
And what was the thought behind that? Because there's a lot of drive-by-drive games that I play that if the defense does cash in with a score, that does count as their next possession. So what was the thought process behind not taking away a possession?
Well, the way the drives ended, as I mathematically counted them on offense, lent me to create the card as it is right now. And I had an Excel test bed for each season that I make. And surprisingly so, when I did it, I was coming up about 6 to 10% low on the average scores. And I went back and looked, and I found that the actual defensive scoring accounted for almost 6 to 10% of your game score. So having that really helps balance the statistical accuracy of the game engine, and doesn't take away from the other opportunities to score. Plus, if you have a fumble or an interception or pick six, it doesn't take hardly a couple seconds off the clock anyway. So,
all right, okay. And so below the interception and fumble, we have the KRTD. So that means a kick return TD and a PRTD, which is a punt return TD.
Now,
and that's something new you just added, right?
Right. Yeah. Let me go ahead and explain those two. If you have a 0, like everything else, you do not have the opportunity to return a kick return or a punt return for a touchdown. If you've got a number, you have to roll exactly that number or the range or whatever numbers are on there in order to get credit for that. Now, on the score sheet that I have, I've given everybody a punt return and one kick return per game. So you can use this once per game. If it's a 0 before the game even starts, you can just cross it off and let yourself know that you can't use that. For a kickoff return, you can only use that at the beginning of each half and after each score. So let's say, for example, and this brought a little bit of strategy up. I was playing a game recently where I says I'm gonna use that kickoff return in the second half of the game, and come the second half of the game, the teams just did nothing but trade punts back and forth, and I'm like, if the game could potentially run out before your kick return opportunity even gets a chance to be used. So there is some strategy there as far as when you should use that. And the same thing for a punt return. You have to have a punt on your card ending that possession in order for the next team to order to use that punt return if they have anything other than a 0.
So if you have both, can you only use one, or can you use both?
No, you can use both. So you just have one per game for each.
Okay, so it probably would just make more sense that if you were getting the kickoff to roll it right then. I mean, because that way if you save it, there's no gain by saving it. And either that or the punt. So the first punt you should try to probably return, I would imagine.
Now, you brought up a good point as far as possessions. The sheet that I have, the score sheet that I have, it defaults to having the road team go first and the home team second. That doesn't necessarily need to be that way. You can alternate road, home, road. The way if you're using my Excel helper, you there you go. Their formulas are hard coded to what's in that points column in column W. So for the first, at least for the first, second, actually all 4 quarters, if you put something in there, it's going to change the score in the line score. But if you're just doing it by pencil, you can do any way you want. Now you can do it on here too. If you want to do the home line first and then do the road line for the first possession, the second possession, and so on, you can just do it to your heart's content how you want to change that.
Okay. So the kickoff return, if you have a number, it's probably better off to use it on the first score. Just get that kickoff, check it, because you might not get another chance at it. And the same with the punt. Yeah.
Now that's for the first team. If whoever's the second team getting that possession in the first quarter, unless that first team scores, you can't use that. So it might be best to flip flop them in the second half and give the other team a chance to have that kickoff return opportunity.
I didn't follow that. that.
Let's say the road team goes first, and they roll and they get a drive ending on downs. Technically, the home team will not get a chance for that kickoff because they won't have the ball actually kick off
right
to them. Right. They've technically taken over on downs.
Okay.
So if you let the road team receive in the second half, then they'll have the opportunity to use that kickoff return.
Okay. So as long as there's a kickoff or a punt, you can use it.
Right.
Right. Okay.
It would be like Dave, the blue chip in the play.com in a play game.
I'm just thinking that, there's this, because if you turn over on downs or if you miss a field goal, then you never get that punt return. So I would almost think that first punt, you would say, hey, I'm playing that chip because I want to make sure I get the return.
The kickoff, let me clarify, the kickoff return is for scores. After scores, the punt return is only after punts.
Right. Yeah. But that's what I'm saying is that sometimes, like Ron was saying, sometimes the Chief would never punt. So I think on the first punt against the Chiefs, I'm playing my chip. Okay, so I'm looking here at this is the spreadsheet that you have it with it as well, and this is the score sheet and also some dice rolls as well. So if you hit the F9 button, it'll roll all these dice here, and it'll bring up the either offense or defense. Right, that's what that first thing says. So for those of you in Radio Land, we're looking at the Excel spreadsheet right now, and so it tells you if you're going to look at the offense or the defensive part of the card. It's going to tell you what the play roll is. It also gives you a red zone roll. So if you roll red zone, that's all there. And there's also a roll for the extra point. And at the bottom, there's a roll for the defense or the special teams check. So that's what I'm assuming that if you have a fumble, an interception or something like that, you would check there. And then the same thing for a punt or a kickoff, I would imagine. There's also the roll for the safety or no safety if you have that come up. There's an extra drive roll, the end of half roll, and a 2-point conversion. Talk about the 2-point conversion a little bit.
The 2-point conversion, you can use that whenever you want. There's no, of course, it has to be after a touchdown. But I used the universal NFL percentage over the last several years, which I believe is between 47 and 49%. So whenever you want to use the 2-point conversion, I believe it's a 4 to 7 roll will get you the 2-point conversion.
Okay. Now, something I had brought up to you earlier about this is late in the game. I'll take this away. We can look at something else in a bit. Late in the game, if it's a one-score game, but it's more than 3, and I had brought up to you, if I roll a field goal on my last possession, field goal does me no good. Okay, and there's some games that you can actually cash in the field goal and roll again to see if you get a touchdown, to see if you can actually tie the game. And you said you didn't want to put that into the game. And what was the reasoning for that?
Well, with a drive-by-drive result-based, and this was basically strictly what this represents when you're doing the drive-by-drive. The results I wanted to have represent what actually happened over an NFL season. So, and there's some room here to use your imagination on how some drives end, as far as, maybe recreating, like, for example, let's say a team who has the last possession of a game has a punt. Well, the team who ends the game is a game very rarely, if at all, ends on a punt. So you could say, okay, this ended on downs. It could have been a failed Hail Mary. But getting back to your question, if you've got a late close game and the trailing team has the ball, the field goal can be, you can, at least in my mind, I kind of play that as they kicked the field goal, they went for the onside kick, and the onside kick failed. There's still a chance when you get in the red zone that you're either going to score a touchdown or you're not going to score a touchdown. And that's basically how that will play out, regardless of what the other results are. So if you get anything other than a touchdown, then, use your imagination on how that would play out.
I kind of did that when I was reading your response back then, and you were like, well, use your imagination because, blah, blah, blah. And I says, so when I took a step back and when I looked at your game here, it's not necessarily a chronological drive-by-drive game. And so when you put it in that perspective, it's not like, some other games where it's okay, you get the drive. It's almost like here are all the drives during the game. You might get an extra drive. You might run out of time on a drive. You might only get 8. You might get 12 drives. And so here's a collective look at all the drives in the game. And once I kind of put it in that perspective, whereas, okay, I'm the whatever team, home and the road team, and I'm down by 5, and I kick a field goal, and I would never do that. Well, I'm thinking, well, maybe that field goal came with 5.5 minutes left in the game, and we weren't thinking about going for that touchdown at that point. And then, we roll for the extra drive, we don't get it, or maybe that can be considered, just time running out, or again the other team driving it down a long drive and just taking up all the clock. So once you kind of put it in that way, where it's, don't take everything so literally, like this happened first and this happened second. Look at, this is what happened during the game. So if you kick that last field goal when you really needed a touchdown, that didn't necessarily happen in the last minute of play.
And that's one of the reasons why I decided to put something in the rules as far as letting the team who's behind go last, especially in those last, drive or two of the game, to at least give the opportunity of that dramatic tie or comeback.
Yep, I like that. So that's kind of what I was thinking, is that the way this game's laid out is that you can't take it as this is how chronological it is. These are the drives that happened. And in the third quarter, they got that field goal. Maybe they needed the touchdown, but somehow, some way they didn't get the touchdown. That kind of put my mind at ease. I was like, okay, I do like that. Where do you think this game fits in amongst the other football games?
Well, I'm very pleased at how this came out with regards to how quickly it plays and the long-term accuracy that it would provide. So I think this is something, if somebody wants to pick something up for 15 minutes, knock a game out. And you could do it an entire week of games in probably under an hour and a half, probably under the time it would take to play a single game of Strat. So
is that what you were going for? You were going for a quicker play game here?
Yes. Okay. Yes. For this scenario, I was, yes.
And that's Ron, that's what we talked about this afternoon. Where would this game fit in? I said, what I really like about it is it took me less than a minute to figure it out. And it took me 7 or 8 minutes to play. And so, I'm in my busy season where I'm working every single day and sometimes 13 hours a day. And if I come home and come out of the shower and I got like this smidgen of energy and I want to play something, this type of game is the perfect game where I could sit down and play a couple of games and not have a huge setup time, not have to do a lot of thinking about it. There's no setup. You just pull the teams out and start rolling dice. That's what's really great about it. And you get some results, and it's not a instant result game. It is kind of drive by drive, but it's not like in sequential order drive by drive, like we talked about there. So you get your scores, you get a little bit of meat on that bone without taking forever. And that's what we talked about today, actually.
Really seems to be a good replay companion if you're not doing a computer football game. These are the teams I want to play out, and everything else we can just play out in relatively short order.
I'm glad you brought up the word companion, because there are other games, and I know there are other gamers out there that have played this so far, Jason Graham being one. He uses the family football player finders to figure out who did the scoring. So, to me, at least in my mind, there was no need to recreate the wheel as far as that's concerned. I'd rather spend my time making more seasons than putting together player finders for this game when there's already that, and also Fast Drive Football has them as well. So
right. What was your inspiration to make the game? What was your eureka moment?
Well, like I said, it was the I wanted to make a quick play game, and I wanted something that was in the realm of payoff pitch, where you could look at a card and know the qualities of it and know exactly what you're going to get before you even roll the dice, or it's possible.
Okay,
so I'm a big creator more than I am a player. I wish I had more time playing, but I find myself creating more than playing.
You talked about the baseball games you played growing up. What did you play for football, if anything?
Well, we had one of those electronic football games that you turn the electricity on and the plastic players run all over the place.
One of those, the vibrating ones. Okay.
Yeah. I did a lot of SI Pay Dirt.
Yep.
And the college companion to that.
Old now, yeah.
Yep. And I've got Fast Drive Football. I've done several games of that. So
okay.
I was just showing the instructions there. It's 2 pages of instructions. So
I had to increase it to 2 with the additional rules. So
yeah, and like I said, you did add the special teams return on that there. How long does it take you to make a season?
Well, right now it takes probably a portion of a couple days. I'm still in the process of getting all the Excel templates created. As far as, you've got the different tab labels for the different team abbreviations and so on and so forth. So once I get that all done for the different eras and stuff, it could probably uninterrupted. I could do it in under a day.
Okay.
As far as making a season.
Nice.
So
what is the cost of your game?
It's free. Absolutely free.
And what's the idea behind making this free instead of trying to make something for your time?
It's something I enjoy doing. It's my way of giving back to the community. And if I charged something for the game, I think there would be a underlying expectation. Maybe expectations would be a little bit more heightened behind it if I actually had to charge money for it. So, I mean, I'm going to be using it for my own use. I plan on doing, as soon as the regular season ends, I'll have a set done, ready to be used for the playoffs. So it's just my way of giving back to the community. So I don't mind at all it being free.
Yeah, it's a fun game. I enjoy it. It's something I would pay for because I've had so much fun with it. But I can see your point there that it just if it's free, then it's just like, hey, don't complain. It's free. Just enjoy it for what it is. Don't get on my tail about this, that, the other thing. And we've seen that there. One thing I did notice, and I guess I'm kind of guilty of this myself, is like anybody else that has come up with a game, in the last 4 or 5 years, and we've talked to them on the show, and they put out their game out there, whether it's a game that's charged, a game that's free. Everybody wants to add something to the game. I got to raise my hand. I did too. There was a couple things in there. I wanted to roll for field goals. I wanted that last minute, change of a field goal to a possible touchdown. Then after talking to you and you explained how the game laid out, I've kind of backed off. But there's been a couple of people that have really kind of embraced this game, especially on the Facebook page, and kind of added all sorts of things to it. And what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm all for it. So it just shows me that there are other people that are invested in making this game the best for them and sharing what they have, because there may be others who want the same thing. I know there's somebody came up with rules for that scenario, like you said, with the last minute dramatic comeback. There was a sheet on there for field goal distances. There was another one for weather effects. So, I mean, anything to make the game better for whoever, once you get it, it's your game to play the way you want it. So
the other thing I'm just providing
I'm just providing the framework for that to be
right.
expanded upon.
The one thing I was going to play around with, it'll probably affect the accuracy of the game, but if you got a field goal miss and then you have the field goal made, I was going to, like I said, I haven't played it yet, but I was thinking about, instead of field goal miss, it's like, a tough field goal. And if you rolled a 66, then you made it. And the same with a made field goal. It's like easy field goal. But if you roll a 66, you miss it. So you had that tiny chance of making the miss one and a tiny chance of missing the made one. I haven't tried it yet. I don't know what the percentages would be with that, but it just would give me a chance to roll for the field goal, because there's a couple of games I play, Downey games, and one of them you roll for the field goal, one of them you don't. And I tended to gravitate toward the one you do roll for field goals. I don't know. I've always been a field goal kicking guy. If you follow the channel, you know how many field goals I miss. I think I've eclipsed Al Red Sox fan with missed field goals and missed extra points. We're going neck and neck here. I don't know who's winning that game, but so that's the one thing I was going to try. It may work, it may not. It may again, it would take longer to play the game in a whole bit, but it might add some drama to it. I don't know.
Have you gotten a result that surprised you yet?
Yeah, actually, I have. I mean, let's put this under the premise of small sample size first.
Yes.
Jason Graham, again, I want to thank him publicly for kind of giving me some behind the scenes help with this. He's kind of been my football sensei, for lack of a better term. But he's actually doing a 58 season replay. And I say on the questions here, why 58? That's the reason I made 58. I made it especially for Jason.
Oh, nice.
As my way of thanking him for that. And the very first game he played, the Baltimore Colts, the vaunted Baltimore Colts, got shut out 19-0. So he's playing that game, and I'm seeing the results, and I'm shaking my head like, oh my goodness, what did I do? But no, it's like I said, small sample size, and it just goes to show you anything can happen on any given Sunday, too.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. If you have any questions, if you're in the chat room with us live, you want to ask some questions, now the time to get those in so we can ask John here. One thing I do want to say is I really like the layout of the team cards that you have here. That's the first thing attracted it to me. And they're very similar to the season ticket baseball cards that from Clay Dresslock. And that's one of my favorite baseball games. And the reason why it's one of my favorite baseball games, and I'm, people know I talk about this all the time. I feel as though the season ticket baseball player cards are the best looking player cards that I played with. And I'm not talking quality, like Payoff Pitch owns the quality. They just do. But so I print my own season ticket ones in the PDF. But the clarity on those cards, you never wonder about anything when you're playing season ticket baseball. It's here, there it is, we're done. It's never like, what is that, and what is this, and what's this number, or what's this letter? It's laid out really nice. And your game here, where it's laid out offense, defense, red zone, and then here's the results on 2-12. You never really wonder, what's going on. It's there. It lays it out. So as soon as I saw your game, I was like, boy, this looks just like season ticket baseball, and that's my favorite layout.
Let's put it this way: if you download, and it will put, I think you've got the link to my Google Drive to download all the files with. If you know nothing about 1958 football, you could look at my cards and go through each team's offense and defense, and you could get a good sense of what teams are good and what their strengths are. You look at the Cleveland Browns card on their red zone, and you're going to have mostly TD runs. Why? Because Jim Brown's on the team. So
yeah. I saw the Patriots, and we just had them up to 2007 Patriots. It was TD pass, TD pass, TD pass, TD pass. I want to have anything to do with Tom Brady. Let's see. So we do have some people in the chat that wanted to say hi. Let me see. Glenn comes by, says happy Friday. Thanks for coming by. AP, any plans to create seasons from the 70s and 80s?
Yes. As a matter of fact, I put a poll up there asking what seasons people wanted to have. And actually, while that season was being created, I did the 2007. I've actually started my Excel spreadsheet for the 72 season, the Dolphins 16-0 season. That'll be the next one down the pike, and I should have that one out by the end of next week.
Oh, nice.
There was more than one person that requested a greatest teams That's something down the road that I would like to do. I do want to, however, look at statistically how I can.
Yeah, I was going
to
how would you normalize that?
Yeah, I'm looking heavily at the points per game scored by team for each season and having some sort of an offset, and also using the SRS ratings of each team and kind of combining those into an offset to where if it gets close to a field goal or touchdown, that one of these qualities will be either upgraded or downgraded. That's how, at least at first glance, I'm looking at how to use these cross era, but nothing's set in stone yet. I'm still in the planning and thinking stages on that.
Talk about SRS for a minute, because Mike Jabral's game uses that, and it looks to be, to me, kind of like WAR in baseball.
Mm-hmm.
It's an interesting number, but really not quite sure how it's derived, and maybe if you know, how does that derived, and how should that tool be used?
From the reading I've done, and I'm no expert on SRS yet, but from what I've read, it was actually kind of used to help set the betting lines. So if a team had an SRS of 10 and another team had an SRS of -4, then the higher number team would, in a hypothetical game, would be a 14-point favorite
on a neutral field, right?
But it's
being a home.
Yeah, it's based on a number of things, including strength of schedule. But that's something that because you can't, this game, you just can't put the change in physical aspects into the game as far as cross error. The only thing you really can do is just try to massage things on a statistical basis. So those two seem to be the most logical, at least starting points for that.
Okay,
trying to see if there's any other questions here.
I just saw one. Do you see yourself making any college teams? If I can get the data for it, yes. Scoring opportunities, offense and defense by team, aren't that hard to come by. The actual drive percentages, there's some things that I use a stat head from Football Reference.
I have to ask how much of that were you using?
Yeah, I do use that for a couple of things, but college does not have that yet. So, but for example, like when I made 58, I did have to use some roundabout formulas to compile those. So I don't see it being that hard to do. I just got to get in there and see, when making the spreadsheet, how to go ahead and do that. But I think it lends itself to the college teams as well. And I know there's some people on the Facebook group who ask for UFL seasons and stuff like that too.
Oh, you're going to be getting all kinds of.
Can you do the Ivy League from 1967?
So I'm looking over here. You were talking about family football and the Finders. So I just pulled up a 76 Patriots here on family football, and the Finders are 11-66. Is that something you might think about dropping in an extra roll on your spreadsheet so people could do that?
That's not a bad idea at all. I thought I had a miscellaneous roll. Did I forget that one? Did I have that one on there? You get this spreadsheet up. I don't.
No, on the one I don't. The one I have.
Okay.
Don't.
No, that would take 5 seconds to add. So yeah, next week I can have that on there for a couple of additional rolls.
Yep. Arnold says thank you for a great game. Yeah, I agree. It's fun. DB, happy Friday. Fenner comes by. And a few other people here. The pesky poll.
Mm-hmm.
And Phil, I did put the link in the chat here, and it's also in the description here for a link to the Google Drive. And I assume you'll be adding to that, all the time as you add seasons and update things.
I'm actually throwing around the idea of making a web page too. So,
nice.
I can it'll probably be several weeks before that's up, but that's something I see myself doing for this, is making a simple web page for downloads and stuff like that.
Oh, great. Yeah, that should be pretty good. You can bang those out pretty quick,
Yeah.
and they're not that expensive to have just a place to put everything in the whole bit. And you can put videos of people reviewing your games and whatever whatever it is you want to keep everybody updated. I know you have a Facebook group, and it's Drive Time Football on Facebook, so you look that up, and there's a lot of things going there.
You got 100 members in a pretty big hurry too.
Yeah, I'm up to 115 right now.
Nice.
So I'm pleased by the like I said, by the response on that. So.
And you said you get good help from the community and other game designers as well, because so that's always good, and there's always room for different games, as well.
Now, where do you see this game going? And what are your plans with this?
Well, the immediately plans are putting out as many seasons as I can, and so again, I'll start looking into the greatest teams. I would even mind putting some sort of either decade teams together, or maybe dynasty teams, teams when 3 to 5 year runs, something similar to that.
Teams with some slices then, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Several year slices. It could lend itself to that as well. So, but we're going to take, do baby steps and start off with the seasons first, and have the playoffs out. And if I can get the data, I think I might put a NCAA playoff set together as well, if I can get the stats together for that.
How hard was it to come up with the formula, whatever the specific formula that you used?
I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but no, it wasn't that hard.
Okay.
To be honest with you, I'm one of the things I like to do is try to reverse engineer other games to see how they're created. So this one, to be honest, isn't that hard to deconstruct. So its simplicity is something that I'm proud of, and the way it outcomes is something that's as accurate as it is and as quick as it is to play.
Yeah, no, that's the big selling point for me, is how fast it plays. It's not necessarily an instant score game or a final score game. You do have some drives in there, but it's zero setup. You just start rolling the dice and you start playing. And I've had some fun with this thing. I really do. I can see myself, maybe trying to bang out a full season with this at some point. And when 1976 comes out, wink, 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 wink. I always play those Buccaneers to see if I can get them a win. And sometimes I do. Sometimes I get those 76 Buccaneers a win, usually against the Pittsburgh Steelers, which would never happen, but it's happened on my table a couple of times. So, but that should be fine. I would love to see that, the 76 Buccaneers card, how bad it is,
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
I mean, we saw the 2007 Patriots card where it was just all touchdowns. So, I mean, that's kind of crazy.
Well, you look at the Miami Dolphins card for 07, and that's not much better than probably the Bucs card, because the Dolphins were 1-15 that season.
Oh, jeepers, really?
And they've only got red zones on 3, 6, and 10 on offense. So, yeah.
Now, red zone, it's not an automatic score, but the chances are pretty high for most teams, correct?
On average, I believe red zone chances fell into 37 to 40% range on average. And you're going to have outliers, high and low. So,
okay, so let me see. I'm going to share this one more time here. Let me go to present my screen here. And so we're going to look at a couple different teams. Yes, we got the Giants and the Jets. This is from 2007 as well. So the Giants were 10-6, Jets were 4-12. And so let's compare here a little bit. So we have, let me see, in the red zone, we got 5 touchdowns to 4. Actually, a lot of field goals for the Jets. And 1 missed field goal chance for each in that red zone.
Now you notice the missed field goal for the Jets is on a 5, where on the Giants it's a 3. So the percentage is higher the closer you get to that 7.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And a 7 for the Jets is a field goal too, not a touchdown. So,
yep.
Yeah, you got to keep that in mind. Ron, you got to keep that in mind, Ron.
I see the Eli interception on the 5 on the Giant offense. I see that. I see, but you notice that the Jets on their offense at 7 is not a red zone; it is a punt.
Oh yes, yeah,
And
yeah.
while the defense for the Jets is a 7, is a red zone chance. It is for the Giants too, but the Giants gave up 350. Actually, gave up only 4 less points.
This is true.
But there was a 6-win difference. See, that's a thing with football, is that there just isn't, besides the sample size being so small. I mean, the difference between a 10-6 team and a 6-10 team can be literally 5 points. And so it's kind of how did that figure into how you figured how these cards work? Because it's just win-loss record is a big thing, but if you look at some football games, I mean, I did years ago a 78 replay with the Kansas City Chiefs, and now Red Sox fan has just finished one with the Kansas City Chiefs, and from 78, and I think they were a 2 or 3 win team, and we both had them in the playoffs because they lost 6 or 7 games by less than 4 points.
Yeah.
And so when you look at, I mean, there are some good spreads here. Pittsburgh and San Diego, there's, way above the points for and points against. Was that the year that Detroit went 0-16? What was the year that Detroit went 0-16?
Was that 8 or was that 13? I forget what it was.
May have been 8. But yeah, I mean, because that's the thing. Actually, go up and look. They went 7-9. So that was not that year. But look, they gave up nearly 100 more points than they scored, and they nearly went 500. So,
and look at their defense: 5, 6, 7 in the red zone.
Yeah, they're going to give up a lot of points.
And that's someone brought something up the other day, and I don't know if it was on Facebook or YouTube or something like that, but somebody brought up the point that they like to look at cards, whether it's team cards or player cards, and have an idea how good or bad somebody or a team is. And just the time we've been talking here, I tend not to look too deep into these things, but just in the time talking here, you can really see the difference, between a team that gives up, 444 points where their defense is 5, 6, 7 red zone. That's going to give up a lot of points.
Right. Look at the Packers. They have an interception on a 5 on their defense. They're going to pick off a lot of passes. They're going to give up their fair share of points.
Yeah.
But, yeah, call up Miami since you got that open.
Okay.
They're the 1-16, 1-15, 1-16.
There you go. So they're 1. I mean, they still scored quite a few points, but yeah, that defense is bad.
A lot of field goals in that red zone, but 5, 6, 7, 8 are touchdowns as well. And so it is going to be fun looking at these things. And one interesting thing, John, that you did add to this that I don't know if I've really seen in a lot of other games is the turnover on downs. I played a game the other night, and it was just like turnover on downs. There was 3 in a row. We weren't punting. It was just it was a turnover on downs. Practically, I want to say it was 3 or 4 drives in a row. And part of me was like, that would never happen. But then I remember, like I say, talking that, use your imagination on this. Maybe each team is up at midfield and it's a 4th and inches, and they just didn't get it, or it was some kind of 4th and short, and they decided to go for it. Maybe it was on the cusp of field goal range, and so it took me a couple of minutes. I was like, I'm liking this downs thing, even though it's come up 3 times in a row. Because it's just, Ron always talks about the story. This game creates the story for you.
And there are times where
one of the cards I wouldn't mind seeing is I don't know if it's a college or a high school team, but there's a coach out there. He never punts.
Right,
never punts.
I did see that.
And even in a conventional game with older school thinking, in that the chances are over the course of the season, you're probably going for it on 4th down about 16, 17, 18 times, just from what Dave has said, or you're down big late and, you're within that 10 to 14 points where it's still winnable and you have to go for it. And so, yeah, to have a, 6 or 7% chance of having a possession ends on downs, it isn't unrealistic at all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I'm
and
liking
even
this.
even the ones that ends on downs, they're going to go for it and make it on 4th down a lot too.
Right. Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
Now this is fun. I'm the more I look at these cards, the more I really like how this looks as far as, they're laid out. I like the colors. They're color coded. Again, I keep going back to season ticket baseball where everything's color coded and just it's bright, it's colorful. It just, everything kind of makes sense, the whole bit. It's fun. I like how you put the records on there for the teams and the points for and point against, so you have an idea what this team has done during the season. And we had talked about because you're giving this game away, we don't have to really worry about the logos or anything like that, because there's no money being exchanged. This is just something fun you're doing, and so that adds to it too. So anybody wondering about that, this is not a paid project. So it's just kind of a fun thing that he's doing that'll let us play this game.
Is it possible, maybe with teams that didn't score much or gave up a lot of turnovers, to actually have a potential turnover in a red zone situation? I know in today's game, once you get in there, you're going to score, but Ernest Spiner will tell you all about fumbling on the 2.
The percentages of drives ending in turnover, those fumbles and interceptions, and this is something where, again, you use your imaginations. Yes, right. Some of those returns of those turnovers are going to happen in the red zone. The term red zone that I use is basically, that catchy phrase that would represent something that would trigger a scoring opportunity. It doesn't necessarily mean that the ball's inside the 20-yard line.
Okay. As I'm looking through some of these, Seattle, which was a good team, they actually can't. So the only way you can score is to roll a red zone.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Right.
All righty. Here, so I'm trying to think if there's anything else going on. No, we're just taking a look at more of the cards here. This is the 2007 set. And let me see. I think I did show off.
Another question I have: when you do the roll for the extra drive, if both teams pass the roll, do both teams get an extra drive?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, you do it independently of each other.
Okay.
So when it comes to that extra drive, you roll that extra drive first to see if they have it, and then if they pass that, then they go ahead and have your roll, your offense, and your number to see what the result of that drive actually is, and then the other team would also do the same exact thing.
Okay. All right.
So now looking here on Seattle and San Francisco, the extra drive says all. So they're automatically going to get the extra drive, except at the end of the half and end of the game where you need to roll to see if time runs out.
Correct.
Okay. Now, getting back to what we were talking about how the drives are not necessarily in sequential order. So if you were late in the game, and let's just say Seattle's winning by 3 over San Francisco, and Seattle gets the extra drive and San Francisco doesn't, you still want to play out the Seattle drive, even though they've already won the game, because for accuracy of the game and the formulas in the season and point total and stuff. So you can't think about it as, well, they're going to just run up the score. Why not take a knee? Again, you got to think of this drive might be happening with 4 minutes left, and if they score, they score. And so,
Buddy Ryan don't play that way, Dave.
Well, you kind of got to think of it in a way an announcer what they would do in a game that's a blowout.
Right.
You still got to play it. You still got to play it through to the end, and whatever happens, happens.
That's when you pull the folder out with the family vacation slides and the stories. Yeah. No, very, very, very creative. And again, you look at San Francisco, which wasn't that good that year, and they have 2 chances on offense to score. You got to roll a 5 and a 9. So that's very clever.
Is there any? Now, here's what I'm wondering here.
Yes.
Let me go back to the Patriots real quick, just because they were the top team that year. So let me go to New England. Okay. Is there a chance of scoring off the offense or defense, or do you have to go to the red zone? I'm looking here, and no, you definitely have to go to the red zone to get a score, correct?
Yes, unless you score safety on the other team's possession.
Okay, or an interception or a fumble gets returned or something like that.
Right. Other than that, it's strictly touchdown or field goal.
Okay, so yeah, I that's one thing like I said, I was looking at this. It didn't dawn on me till just now. It's like, I'm looking. There's no automatics on anybody's offensive chart. It's go to the red zone, and then it's for New England again. Everything's a score except for a 2.
You have if you get to the red zone for New England, you have a 97% chance of scoring.
That is true,
because there's only one roll in 36 that is a missed field goal. That's it. Everything else is points.
And that's I corrected myself on the page when one of my YouTube videos I did was a Miami New England game, and actually Gostowski was the kicker of the Patriots in 2007, not Adam Vinatieri. So he was just as good.
That is phenomenal. So so think of it as like in strat hockey as a goalie rating. You get the red zone,
that's what I was thinking, Ron. Is that because in strat it's very few chances of getting a goal off the player card. There are some players that you get the automatic goal, but there's a lot of them you do have to go to the goalie card, and that's kind of how this works out. Now, it brings up another question Ron and I were talking about today. What was the idea behind the 50-50 split? Between the offensive chart and the defensive chart.
That was the only. Well, I wanted to keep it simple for one, and that was the simplest way. For lack of a better term, the simplest way to keep it simple. Okay. And like I said, on the testing that I did, having that 50-50 split allowed for the numbers to still be accurate, and because the drives are affected by both the offense and the defense. I mean, they're both on the field at the same time. So,
and the great thing is, if you own a play.com game, you can just use the decider die, but you can just use 3d6. For one of those dies for offense, you can go odd for offense and even for defense. So it's just, take out your Yahtzee set and play it.
And again, if you have the Excel helper, it rolls it all there for you. It decides all that right there for you if you want to use that. Yeah. I haven't tried that yet. I was rolling my own dice when I played, and I can only imagine now that I think about it, my 7-minute and 17-second game would have gone a heck of a lot faster if I just used the spreadsheet, because I get all the rolls done at once, and you could probably resolve a drive in 10 seconds.
Yeah, you probably spend more time actually entering the data on the spreadsheet than you would actually rolling the dice and checking the results on that. So
yeah, I think I kept it by hand when I played 17 minutes. I just printed out a score sheet and I just rolled the dice and just went like for offense and D for D. I didn't really fill out a lot of the things. I just went, okay, what is the result? I just wanted to get the result, and that's how I played that pretty quick.
So you can actually use this game in 2-player mode if you think about it. One would be the offense, the other would be the defense, and you switch back and forth, and whoever has that card for that team they can determine when to use that kickoff return, when to use that punt return, and so on. So there's some minor strategy ingredients built into this, and just by default, which makes it fun to use.
So I'm looking at Miami. Miami has the same 97% chance to score in the red zone here. However, there's a lot of less chances to get to the red zone. Yeah. So 7, 8, 9's a punts from Miami. Yeah. So it's like the more I look at the team cards here, the more sense they start to make, and the more fun this game kind of gets to be. So I'm looking over here, and the Vikings, they have the potential safety. I like the fact that you've incorporated safeties, even though it's kind of a very rare thing, because there's a lot of games that just don't have safeties in there, and they're a small part of the game, and I think that they should be in there to a small degree, and you've done that here, and I like that. Not everybody gets a safety here, although if Minnesota offense rolls a 12 and then the safety comes up, Miami would get the safety. So I guess technically, most teams could somehow get a safety in this game. Yeah, I do like that. All righty. Have there been any, before we get going here, any final questions? Put them in the chat room here, folks. Is there any other suggestions that people have made that you've thought about maybe putting in the game? Or you like, well, I don't want to make this too complex. I like it where it is.
No, other than the kickoff return and punt return, that was probably is going to be the last major piece game engine wise that's going to be in there. I don't personally see it changing any different than what I got it right now. And for those people who actually design games will know that I'm talking about when I say that if you do make some sort of a change, let's just say I have 8 or 10 seasons made and you make a change to it, well, then you got to change the season cards for the past 8 to 10 seasons or however many seasons you have. So, and I don't mean to imply that I'm not going to make changes just for the sake that I don't want to go back and do the work on that. But all the scoring is covered on it. Everything works the way I want it to work. So I don't, I don't see anything changing on that other than the rules that everybody else wants to, to add on to make the game better for themselves.
Do you have a favorite season?
Do I?
Yes.
Well, I am a Patriots fan, even though I have a Yankees hat on. I was raised in New York, but born in Connecticut. So I think I have the right to claim a weird allegiance there. Oh, wow. Well, 2001's got to be memorable because that's the first.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Actually, 85. That was the first year the Patriots are actually in the Super Bowl, and that was that was actually one of the seasons that was in the poll, which made me one of my next seasons after 72 with the 85 Bears defense on that. So yeah, and then there's a question: any possibility of creating games for other sports? To be honest, as far as the game engine is concerned, I can possibly see this being used for basketball. I would actually try this in a basketball game right before I do a baseball, if at all, for baseball. But that would probably be the only.
Would that be like a quarter by quarter design?
Yeah, it would be like 2 or 3 sets of possessions by quarter with either scores or score differentials and stuff like that. So yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, that should be fun. All righty. So again, I want to thank. So you're Connecticut, New York guy. You thinking about maybe coming to Digital to Dice Con 25 in May in Connecticut?
I actually live in Ohio.
I should have seen you in Canton. I was just out in Ohio.
I was busy that weekend. I would have loved to have come out there. I'm in Dayton, which is in Western Ohio, about 3 hours away, but still, it's still in the same state. I won't rule it out. If people want to come out and see it.
Dave Little claims to be from that particular area?
Dave Little, I don't know. Dave Little, he was from Cleveland, then he was from Cincinnati, and then I thought he was in New Orleans. I mean, every week he's got a new place he lives. We can't figure out what Dave is. So, unless Ohio's this huge state that we don't know about.
I didn't realize that his middle name was Waldo. Where's Waldo?
Yeah.
Anyway, so
somebody else asked a question early on if they were going to have any season with Bengal favorites in there, so I might mix that in as well. So
hopefully you'll get to them all because we had some good ones. 81's a good one. That's the catch in the Freezer Bowl and those Super Bowl there. Obviously, the 85 Bears you said you're on top of. 76 is always a good one for me because again you get those crazy Buck teams and the first year of expansion, so that's always a fun one to do. Obviously, you get 2007 with those Patriots there, but there's a lot of decent seasons out there. You really can't go wrong with too many of the seasons. There's not many bad seasons out there.
Yeah, every season has a storyline.
Yeah,
it does.
So hopefully you'll make those, and because I know I'm looking forward to playing. I got some of my favorite seasons I'd like to play as well, and something that we can do here. And Sean says he looks like a great game. He's excited to play. Yes, it is. It's very fun. And, we're kind of hoping he's going to add more seasons to that. And so anyway, so like I say, I'm supposed to go back out to Ohio, hopefully with Mike again next August. So in Canton, if I don't see you in Digital to Dice in Con in May in Connecticut, maybe we'll hook up out there. Yeah. Definitely, I will probably bring your game. If I don't see you, I'll probably try to bring this game out to Digital to Dice Con so people can play it in a whole bit. And that's what I did with a couple of games. I brought a few games out to Canton that people had never played before, and we had some fun with those. And so it's always fun playing new games. It really is, and showing people some other games. And it was fun. The couple of games I brought out and I showed people, in 5 minutes they were off and running on their own. That was kind of fun to see. It's like, oh, cool. So you guys get it? Like, we get it. And they're playing. Oh, this game's fun, And we had a few games like that out there. So anyway, all right. Well, John, I want to thank you for coming
so
on
much.
Digital to Dice.
Thank you.
Alrighty. And so again, a couple ways you can get a hold of his game on Facebook. Look for Drive Time Football Group, the Drive Time Football, just like it sounds. And also in the description of this video, I've put the link to his Google Drive, which he'll be adding the seasons there from time to time. But again, Facebook's the best way. You can kind of get the updates right there. And he's thinking about doing a website. Once he has that, we'll let you guys know what that website is.
Yep.
Alrighty. Ron, any final thoughts?
No, good job.
Thank you.
You did a good job with this. It's very playable, very quick. And I think it makes the perfect replay companion for those who prefer to play out long games and don't want to play out an entire season. I think that's absolutely great for that.
I think this is going to be good for some quicker projects for me with teams. It kind of scratches that itch between a faster play, instant results game, and then the full drive-by-drive game, and then the full play game. It's just a little quicker than a normal drive-by-drive game. Sometimes that's what you want. Sometimes that's what I want. You know what I mean? So again, good going, John, and a lot of people saying thank you. So thank you to everybody who came in and watched tonight. And all right, so we'll wrap this up here, Ron. So you've been listening to the Digital to Dice podcast. DigitalToDice.com is the website. 978-751-DICE is the text line. DigitalToDice@yahoo.com is the email. And over on Facebook, Facebook.com/groups/DigitalToDice. And Ron, this is episode 242, and we've been talking to John from Drive Time Football. And again, thanks for coming on, John.
Thank you.
All right, and we'll talk to everybody later.
Bye-bye.
I let him do that. That's his thing. Bye-bye, everyone.